This episode of XIV Reborn is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial, head on over to audible.com/gamebreaker. Show them some love.
Gamebreaker TV.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to XIV Reborn right here on Gamebreaker TV. I'm Mike Byrne, aka Magic Man, your host, and with me, as he always is... I didn't even go to his camera yet, and he's already posing.
Alright, sorry, that means I'll hold
Damn it! He's got to hold the pose. Here it is, Mr. Happy Michael Poveromo. How are you, Big Daddy?
I've got the shirt on, so I have to do it. What'd you just call me? Just call me Big Daddy.
I called you Big Daddy. It's patch 2.5 review time. If you've seen the show before when major patches go live, you know what's about to happen today. It's 1 week since patch day. We've jumped in, we've played it, we've gone through it. We're going to give it a review 1 through 10. Make sure if you're in chat and you want to score an item as we go along, don't be afraid to throw your 1 through 10 in there as well. And then, of course, we'll give the overall patch a score at the end of this as well. We do have a little more to talk about on top of that, so... I think we should pretty much get right down to it. Chat is already...
Yeah, definitely just don't call me Big Daddy for the rest of the show. Cause
come on, Big Daddy.
I know, because after the pre-show, it's just... Oh, no, it's just the two things. No.
Hi, Chris.
No, don't do that. No, don't say that. No.
All right, we're going to get started with the 2.5 patch. We're going to break it down one piece at a time and score it. Here we go. Chat is already... throwing out their scores for different things, and they're already throwing out how many people are watching us live. Last week we had the benefit of the servers being dead, so we had like 660 some people here. There are people that think we can get to 1,000 today. I don't know if that's going to happen. It'd be flattering if it does, but sit back and enjoy the ride. Here we go. What should we talk about first? Let's talk about the story, I guess.
It's the first thing in the trailer, might as well talk about.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the story portion. And again, being 2.5, we only have the first point. Our show gets a 10 out of 10, 12 out of 10. You guys are awesome. The story portion is, of course, just the first half, right? Because we've got 2.5. The next part of the story is going to come a little bit later. We're going to try to avoid spoilers, but... we'll call them out along the way and give you the usual thumbs up when it's okay to come back, because there are a couple of things for us to put a rating on. We're going to have to spoil a little something. So in general, Happy, thoughts on the story as a whole, this first part of Before the Fall?
This was the least, how do I say, the least fillery. Important things are pretty much happening the whole time. And they didn't kind of jerk you around with too many what felt like just filler and unnecessary quests. On top of that, the content that was actually in the story was a lot more... it was just good. Just good. This was probably the best story patch we've had since the initial game launch, in my opinion.
I tend to agree there. I think 2.4 had, you call it fillery, and I think that's a good word for it. There was an awful lot of go talk to this person, come back, talk to this person, come back to me. And there really wasn't much going on. It was just very small pieces of exposition to keep it. So I agree with you. Fillery is now a word. Put it in the dictionary. 2.5 was not that. This first part 1, and I thought it was going to be. There's my damn beagle who is so happy about 2.5. I thought there was actually going to be a fair amount of filler because they were dividing the story into 2 parts. I thought they were going to kind of fill it up a little bit. Then when we saw the patch notes, which we talked about last week, I realized there's not a lot of filler there because it was a really short list of quests to go through and do this. All in all, I very much enjoyed this story. Very much enjoyed the story. We got to talk about a spoiler because there was a huge surprise, at least for me, in here, and my wife is trying to control the beagle. I apologize for that.
He just really liked the patch.
He did.
That's all it is. I was gonna hope he barked like 9 or 10 times so I could make it make sense out of 10.
Yeah, and Chat's pointing out, really, and I agree, the only real filler quest was go find 4 crates.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it in the story.
And that 4th crate was like...
Right? Right?
way out there.
Right? If you, it's all right that I have a dog because Happy has a void scent in his closet. That's right. We're not allowed to talk about what's in there. We're not allowed to talk about what's in there.
Talk about the demon door.
Yeah, shout out to the crate on top of the pipe. Nice job, crate.
Shout out.
Way to go.
Spoiler, there's a crate there.
Here's we do it. We're gonna put up the spoiler flag right now because I think we would be remiss in not talking about something I didn't see coming. Did you see this coming? A key character dying that was not the assassination we think is coming later in 2.5x. A main
I couldn't
character
believe they
has
killed
died.
off that character. I couldn't believe it. Specifically because of the character's history. Just, I didn't see it coming. It was not the character I expected to go.
I was surprised anybody went in the part 1 of this story, actually. We kind of expect it to be coming in part 2 of this, but this character was 2.3? Was that when
2.4?
or was it really 2.4? I was trying to give him a little more credit.
It was like it's like, oh, come on now, already. All right.
Came in 2.4, dies in 2.5, sacrifice. You know, so it was very, very cool the way it all went down, and then as if you weren't like, wow, I did not expect that. That's pretty cool that they're willing to give people the axe like this. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then they smack you with that feels scene, man. And Eorzea, the voice actor for Eorzea was spot on in 2.5. Yeah. Was just spot on. Perfect delivery. The feels, little tear maybe, little tear. I don't know. Some people in chat say they had one.
I don't care what you say about the English voice acting. That was a good scene.
Definitely was.
That was a good scene through and through.
Definitely was. Definitely was. Continuing with the story, we're going to take a break here real quick on the Keeper of the Lake portion. We're going to bounce that down a second. Keeper of the Lake is part of the story in 2.5, but we're going to talk about the dungeons individually. What I do want to jump ahead and talk about, since we're still under the spoiler flag right now, we have not given the thumbs up that it's okay to come back.
I almost did it just as a warning for the next one, but I was like, no, wait, that's not what we agreed upon.
The Chrysalis. 8-person was the mystery trial. We kind of speculated what type of fight it would be based on the achievement in the patch notes, Secret Ascian Man. And it was an Ascian.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Was better than most of the hard modes have been, I'd say, at least in my opinion. It wasn't super hard, but what was there, I was interested to see the direction they were going with mechanics used in that fight. Because it's some more things that they kind of use some of those mechanics in a few different fights in this patch, but I'm glad to see them kind of going out of their way to experiment with the easier fights so that we may see things like that in the more difficult fights in the game.
And speaking of mechanics, when we get to the dungeons, there's one particular sequence of mechanics that I particularly liked that looked like they were playing with something that we may see in the future expanded upon. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Overall, the story portion, you giving it a full 10?
Giving it a full 10.
Busts out the full 10. I got to agree. To me, it's the best story that's been added in any patch so far, and I really, really want to see it finished. I can't wait for part 2 of this story, and that's what I was hoping they did. They needed to do this. Maybe I'm wrong, but when you advertise that you're going to divide the story into 2 parts, you better make part 1 good enough that I feel like, all right, I'm all right with you doing a part 2. I'm all right with you dividing this.
Don't Harry Potter it, don't Mockingjay it, don't Twilight it. Just give us 2 full, complete stories that will make me be happy at the end of both.
Yeah, and I also like the chat's giving it 10 out of 10, but some people are giving it 9 out of 10 just because they're being killed with anticipation.
Fair.
I do like super buffs for extended durations, though. That's nice in the Chrysalis fight. Before you get sucked in, pop your cooldowns, baby. Pop them all before you get sucked in. Some people in chat speculating that the character we're talking about is not dead. I think this one's dead. I'm pretty sure this one's dead.
Well, I mean, look at the end of the Era trailer, and well, yeah. Just
Although, now that you bring that up,
yeah.
somebody that has used the same type of sacrifice that this character used and gave this character the inspiration to sacrifice is not dead.
It's different. It's complicated.
It's complicated. Okay, how so? You got to elaborate.
No, because okay, I know we didn't turn the spoiler flag back on, but now we're digging into Final Coil cutscenes because this is it's just it's complicated. If you beat when you beat turn 12, you'll find out why it's complicated.
All right, we're gonna turn the spoiler flag up. It's safe to come back if you left us for spoilers. Happy, you give the story portion a 10. I give it a 10. I think bam right there. That says it all. Let's move on to the dungeons. Let's start with you know what? We've got 3 to talk about. Why don't you pick your favorite of the 3? We'll start with that.
I had a hard time picking a favorite this patch.
How so? Why?
Keeper of the Lake, I didn't like the first 2 bosses very much. But I love the story, love the final boss. Wanderer's Palace, on the contrary, I didn't like the first boss, but I really liked the last 2, and I liked the design of the dungeon itself, the feel of the dungeon. The sort of way the dungeon challenges you is a little bit different than some of the other ones, a little bit more random at one part. And Amdapor Keep, second boss I didn't like. So all of them have things that I didn't like, but I'm actually going to go with Amdapor Keep on this one. If I have to pick one.
All right, you got to pick one, so let's talk about it. Amdapor Keep, hard mode. Walk us through it. What'd you like? What didn't you like?
I liked the first boss. Was by far the most interesting thing about that whole dungeon to me. Dynamically targeting AoEs.
And that's what I was mentioning earlier as a mechanic that I thought was unique and that they could perhaps expand upon in other ways. I think this was like a trial run. Let's see how well this idea works. Go ahead.
What I didn't like is that, you know how we joked about him being like a knockoff Odin kind of thing? They even used the name of his moves!
Yeah. Yep. It was
like Hall of Sorrow, Aegir, Valfadir, all of... It's like, I know all these.
Yep. If you don't know what we're talking about, if you haven't played Amdapor Keep hard mode yet, the first boss has an interesting mechanic where an AoE hits the floor and is targeted at a certain person, and the person's movement dictates the distance of the AoE, and you have to use it to trigger some other things in the playing field. So if you run closer to the boss, for example, the AoE area becomes smaller. If you run further away from the boss, it becomes a lot longer, and you can get other things caught in the target area. I thought it was a neat mechanic. It's not overly used in that fight, and there's only one thing you have to really do with it in that fight. But I think it's a mechanic that they could really play with in some harder content and go wild with it. I'm interested to see what they do with it because I don't think this was a one-shot deal. I think it was let's see if this works, and if it works, we've got some other ideas to do with it.
Yeah, and the last boss is probably the hardest, not hardest, but the most mechanically diverse last boss we've seen in a dungeon in a pretty long time. He has a lot of different things that go on in that fight, and they evolve over the course of the fight. For a boss that we were just like, what the hell is this guy doing here? Who the hell is this? I thought that it was a good job. Again, dynamically changing AoEs depending on the action of the party. If they're quick enough to overcome a certain challenge is another one. He's got, a lot of mixed mechanics and, sort of mini DPS races within the fight. It was just overall, I just thought, other than the second boss, who even himself did have an interesting mechanic at the very least, that the bosses here were just better. The dungeon trash was better, was more interesting than some of the dungeon trash that we've had in the other I just thought it was overall a good dungeon. That's why it's my favorite.
I have a major disappointment in this dungeon, though. A pretty major disappointment.
Okay.
I hate that the demon walls were treated as a trash piece.
I thought that was going to happen the whole time.
No, I didn't expect them to be like final boss. I expected them to be like, second boss in type deal material, not, but
why I knew that wouldn't happen?
It was a total trash piece. I mean, all you do is kill the ads in the middle. The demon walls have nothing to do with it, but putting a soft enrage time, well, a hard enrage on you as far as how fast you get them down. When I hear we're going to be bringing the demon wall back, and they say something like it's going to be 4 times harder, you know, to me this wasn't hard at all.
You said 4 times as scary.
As scary, and to me it wasn't. I mean, I haven't been in a party yet, even the Duty Finder, that was even remotely close to dying here.
I got a funny story about that. I was in a Duty Finder and I was on my Scholar, and the group was you know, on the verge of hitting it, and I just wanted to see it happen because I've yet to see it happen, so I didn't do any damage as the healer at all. And at the 1 mark, the guy hits the limit break, kills the last enemy. So I didn't even get to see it. I was like, damn it! 1 second away from seeing it. I knew that was going to be a trash the whole time because we haven't had 4 bosses in a dungeon since Pharaoh Sirius, if you can even count the 3rd boss. And they already showed the Headless Horseman was going to be 1. I didn't know it was going to be called. The Boogeyman would be the 2nd one. And then they showed the Demon Walls, and then they showed the final boss. So I was like, it's either a 3rd boss, which is highly unlikely, or it's a trash bowl. That's how I just knew.
To me, I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of taking an iconic character or in the franchise, using it as a boss in one instance, and then using it as a trash mechanic. To me, it was a pointless DPS check. And you're so far in the dungeon that there really isn't a need for that DPS check at that point.
But the bees are back.
Yeah, the bees are back. So that's my one disappointment with Amdapor Keep hard mode. I love the music. I really love the music. It was really, it might be my favorite music out of the 3 new dungeons. Oh, they don't like that chat doesn't like that I used iconic character when referencing Demon Wall. Iconic boss, iconic monster, put whatever you want there. The Demon Wall's iconic, sorry. I loved all the music in all 3 new dungeons. This one was the best for me. I didn't like the Demon Wall thing. I did like the first wall, or the first boss's mechanic testing. To me, I gotta give this one probably a 7. It was just kind of okay for me. It was a little better than average because the music and the first boss, iconic wall. There you go. Thanks, RCVA. It's an iconic wall. That wall
is really iconic.
I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I think you said 8.
Yeah, I said 8 because, I mean, the Demon Wall thing, I was expecting it going in, so I'm not taking points off for that. The only thing that was kind of, I don't know, under sort of utilized, I didn't like the vines because they were good at literally only one part of the dungeon, and they weren't barely even an inconvenience at any other point. I liked the way the trash was done other than that for the most part. I liked the first and the 3rd boss. 2nd boss to me was kind of It was really the big, negative point for me, so I'm giving it an 8.
And chat is mostly agreeing with us. I'm seeing mostly 8 scores, a couple 6s, a couple 7s. So we're all in the same ballpark. Completely mediocre, some of the comments I'm seeing. Demon Wall is the best structure in video games. I'll go with
most iconic structure.
I'll tell you what, though. I think Blazing Arrow in chat says it better than I did. What was once a dangerous enemy is now common trash. And that's kind of the way I felt like it was treated. I just didn't like it.
Well, hey, it makes sense because he's common trash right now. He's the 2nd boss in that dungeon. So
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Wasn't a fan, nor was I a Swim fan. Let's go ahead and go to Wanderer's Palace hard mode. For me, since we let you start off the last one, really besides the music, the only thing that I thought was interesting in Wanderer's Palace, besides the poor Tomberries, those poor guys.
How sad.
Poor guys. Was the totem fight. With the colored totems on the ground. Again, I liked it. It was the kind of an interesting mechanic. It's not something that's, to me, extremely challenging or anything. Once you've done it once, you get the point of it, and you're never going to have a problem doing it again. But I did like the idea of some random elements that didn't feel like RNG was screwing me over. Because I hate random elements that feel like that. But this did add a bit of a dynamic random element for me that changes each time you go in. But you still have control ultimately over how well you do in the fight. I did like that one.
I am amazed that you, there's one thing you're forgetting to mention that you should have found interesting. The end cutscene. If you haven't seen that end cutscene, chat, go watch the end of Wanderer's Palace because it's a good watch. It's a good extra 10 seconds at the end of the dungeon. I thought that the last boss was... I also like the naming of the bosses. They weren't the Final Fantasy XI names that we predicted, but I saw somebody point out those are actually terms. They're like fake words used in what's the name of the I can't remember the name. They're fake words used in a book, in a famous book. Frumius and Manzone. I can't remember. Maybe somebody in the chat will remember. I like the naming conventions. I like the second and the third boss. The music was great. And I just like Wanderer's Palace. Tom berries are awesome.
So 1 through 10.
7.5.
I gotta go 6. This one doesn't do it for me. I liked one interesting mechanic in there. The end cutscene, okay, but again, it's something you're only gonna take once, and then it's not cool anymore. You know, I gotta give this one a 6. If the music wasn't as good, I might even go 5. It's not one that I'm looking forward to popping a lot in the expert queue. I hope that it's not. So yeah, I'm gonna go with a 6 on this one.
All right.
So finally, last one. People are giving it 5 because it's Wanderer's Palace.
Oh yeah. Well, then you should give Amdapor Keep a lower score too.
Keeper of the Lake was the new dungeon, and it was part of the storyline itself.
Yeah.
Now, you've already kind of alluded to you liked the story aspect of this, but we'll keep that score in with the story. We're just going to rate this as a dungeon itself.
Yeah.
You're first this time.
All right. First boss, I didn't like at all. It wasn't interesting to me. It wasn't difficult in any way. It just didn't like it. I felt like visually it looked like it was going to do more than it actually did. Second boss was the same for me. Didn't really do anything. Last boss felt like a mini trial fight, just because of all the AOE dodging that you have to do. Not very mechanic heavy, but a lot of AOEs that you have to constantly dodge, and that can be a trouble in the duty finder sometimes. Trash was, again, a little just kind of straightforward-ish, a little bit more straightforward for me, at least, than the other dungeons. Yeah, just outside of the story, other than the last boss, it was my least favorite dungeon of the bunch.
For me, it's my favorite dungeon, but just barely. The alarms are annoying.
I have my sound turned off all the time. It
is the worst sound effect in the game to date. Please change that damn thing. Please change that. And I said we're going to take the story part out of this, because the story part is pretty much what made this dungeon for me. I'm just barely going to put this one above Amdapor Keep hard mode. I'm going to give it an 8 just so it's above Amdapor, but know that it's a begrudging 8. I didn't like the last fight. I think the last fight takes way too long. It's especially, please, tanks, second dragon, close to Midgar Summer. Please pull it close. But speaking of the story portion of this, spoilers, wait for the thumbs up. Took the light of the crystal? What?
That son of a what?
Again, another story aspect didn't see coming. For me, amazing.
Well, you just didn't know how to interpret it based on the trailer. Like, we saw that clip in the trailer, we didn't really know.
They go dark, right.
Yeah.
People are giving this one 10 out of 10 for the story in there. Yeah, and we're kind of just trying to rate it by itself. With the story, I agree, 10 out of 10, but that only appeals the first time through. So out of there, without the story, I got to give it an 8. It was my favorite of the 3, but I wasn't particularly fond of any of the new dungeons when I compare them to some of the dungeons we got in 2.4, which I thought were really well done. Really well done dungeons.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the 6. That's my 6, is that dungeon.
Fair enough. Speaking of fights, Odin. Let's talk Earth's Font.
Yeah. Did you call it a font?
I'm sorry, Fount. Did I miss? Nope, I just read it wrong.
Now I want to know if there's a font that I can download.
There is a font, Odin Font. Buy it.
Odin Font.
Odin Font.
It's called this Antetzican.
Before we get into this particular fight, since you played it at the Fan Fest, Can you talk about briefly the differences between the two, so that everybody has an idea of what we're talking about here?
Can't silence and ARR. That's all you need to know. And he hits a lot harder too, a lot harder, like about 200 damage harder on his AOE dots. So yeah, it's pretty. It can be pretty rough in the Duty Finder if that's how you're going about trying to get it done. But other than that, yeah, you literally just couldn't silence one move and you couldn't stun another move. That was the only difference. And he was tuned for a higher item level. And he was really big.
Yeah, the model, we talked about that last week in the patch notes and the trailer, that the Odin model was huge compared to FanFest.
Yeah.
Did you like this fight?
I like it as a healer. It's got, like, the tanks don't need to do anything at all. You need one tank. You don't need two at all for any reason in this fight. The healers have the biggest job here, and then the DPS just dodge everything. Please, dodge everything. Can't afford the extra GCDs to heal.
I didn't like it. This is probably the thing that I liked the least about 2.5. And again, it kind of goes back to the Demon Wall thing. To me, they took a very dangerous foe, and while there are some interesting things that if you haven't done the fight before, you're going to hurt yourself and your team the first time through, but once you learn it, you're fine. It's really boring on the tanks. It's not terribly stressing on DPS. Healers, you do have the bulk of the stress on this one, I think.
Tell that to the Duty Finder.
Yeah, well, again, it's not Gilgamesh the first time through. You're not going to queue up for it having never done it and get a group of half the people haven't done it and beat it the first time. That's probably not likely. It's going to take you a try or two. But you're not going to sit there, you're not going to eventually, after a month, break down and pay for it because you just can't get it done. It's not that kind of a fight.
Unless you really, really want guaranteed glamour loot.
And that's the other problem I have, too, is that, it's not technically a hard mode, so I get the difficulty being down a little bit. But now they did the same thing with King Mog, too, where after you do it, to open up whatever comes next, if there is going to be a block at some point where Odin is the gatekeeper, there's no reason to do it again. Unless you want glamour gear, there's no reason to do it again. And I don't glamour shit. So for me, once I cleared it, that was it. I was done. This is my least favorite part of the patch. Again, cool fight. I dig it. Okay, fine. But overall, I got to give it a 4 out of 10. I'm never gonna do it again unless somebody in Gamebreaker Nation, the free company I'm in, needs help. That's the only time I'm ever gonna do the damn thing.
Interesting thing, if you go to your auto-translate feature and you type in Earth and you press the auto-translate button, it'll call it hard mode. It calls it Earth's Fount Hard, which I thought was very interesting because that leads me to believe it's, not extreme. It's just not the full version of the fight. I don't think they'll ever add an extreme version of the fight. It's just weird that they call it Earth's Fount in the Duty Finder itself, but in the auto-translate they give it the designation of hard mode as opposed to extreme. I gave it a 7 strictly because I like... It's one of those fights that doesn't try to be flashy and mechanical, which I feel like there isn't enough of. It's one of those fights where you want to teach somebody how to pay attention to their DPS while dodging AoEs. You bring them into that fight. That's a good learning fight for a lot of the other things in the game. And I like it. And I've yet to fail it in the Duty Finder because I go Scholar every time, so I can DPS and heal. So I gave it a 7. I thought the story behind it was very interesting. He's, again, a primal very much unlike all the other primals. Once you actually read the lore that comes after the fight and explains why the fate keeps respawning, why we can't kill him for good. I thought that was great. 7 for me because of the glamour gear mostly.
Decora puts it nicely in chat, and it's kind of the same way I feel. For a Final Fantasy enthusiast, I've found Odin being a lot harder in other Final Fantasy games, so it's a little disappointing to not see that here. Also, one of the viewer questions we're going to talk about has to do with this fight and the fact that there's a Hardened Rage on it. Which is something we'll talk about a little later. We'll skip it for this portion. We got a lot more to talk about here in patch 2.5 and give our ratings. But first, got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Audible. Right now, if you head on over to audible.com/gamebreaker, you're going to get 30 free days of the service and 1 free audio book. What's the best way to support Gamebreaker? You've heard me say it a million times. Support our sponsors, and Audible has been there almost since the beginning. Big-time sponsor of ours. Let's take a look at their site. Really, really easy to use. I'm going to pull up a book that I actually just finished. If you are a Dan Brown fan, any of those Dan Brown Da Vinci Code books, things like that, Deception Point, not a bad book. Not a bad book. Not one of his better ones as far as comparing it to Da Vinci Code, but definitely worth a read. And if you don't want to read it, Audible can give it to you free with your 30-day trial. Let's take a little listen.
At least close the door, Brophy demanded. Can't you see my dogs are frightened? The man didn't respond. As the chopper rose to 4,000 feet, it banked steeply out over a series of ice chasms and crevasses. Suddenly the men stood. Without a word, they gripped the heavily laden sled and pushed it out the open door. Brophy watched in horror as his dogs scrambled in vain against the enormous weight. In an instant, the animals disappeared, dragged howling out of the chopper. Brophy was already on his feet screaming when the men grabbed him.
And that is just in the prologue. So, yeah, you know you're in for a good book when people and dogs are dying in the prologue. And it's still a better love story than Twilight, as SkinDef in chat says. If you want to check it out, Audible, use this URL, audible.com/gamebreaker. You can pick that as your free book, or you can pick any free book that you want on there. You'll also get 30 days of the service free. Go support them. Go be an Audible friend. Gamebreaker appreciates it, and so does Audible. All right. Moving on with more 2.5. I'm just going to put your camera up real quick here because this is going to be all you. You know what? I'm just going to give my rating right now. 5 out of 10. It was because that's what they always are to me. So here you go. The camera's all yours by yourself. Hildibrand, take us through it.
Funniest one for me. Character. We got to meet a character. We got a few predictable, to me at least a little bit, story developments in that. One of the funniest endings with, I hope we get the ending as a flying mount because it's a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. A reward that I was afraid was going to be on the cash shop was not on the cash shop, so I'm happy about that. The reward I wanted for the Gilgamesh fight was there. I was very surprised that I was actually right about that. The Gilgamesh fight itself, very similar to the original one, maybe a teensy bit harder, like microscopic amount harder, but fun fight, a little bit long, kind of sucks to get in your trial roulette, just because it's not a very short fight. But overall, it was one of the better Hildibrand patches for me as somebody who enjoys it. Good humor, good fight, good rewards for your first time completion, or if you want to go back, give it a 7.5 out of 10.
I actually take the Gilgamesh Enkidu fight as a separate beast. I know it's part of that story, but if you had to rate the Hildibrand stuff and that fight individually, 10. Come on.
The way that it was definitely the best of all the Hildibrand quests outside of his opening. So they're kind of similar to the way I felt about the main story itself. And the ending is I love the ending. I also liked a specific female character that was introduced because that was definitely an experience.
You didn't have any problem with no voices this time?
Oh, what, with Greg?
Yeah, with the Hildy story.
Oh no, do we have voices ever before? Other than Greg? No,
Greg's.
Yeah, he's the only one, but he was only voiced in the battle at Big Bridge. So it didn't really bother me all that much.
I like the Gilgamesh Enkidu fight. So if I'm going to rate that separately, I'm going to put that at a 7 or an 8. Probably an 8. I like the fight. It's a little long, but I'm okay with it. Sometimes I like the fights to be longer. I don't like queuing up for something and 3 minutes later...
Mr. Byrne likes them long.
Shut up. Hi, Chris.
Oh, God.
I also like the Enkidu mount, or the Enkidu minion. Is the reward
Got
there?
Mine.
Did you? Damn it!
So here's the thing.
I lost it 80. I rolled an 88, and I was like, I'm in good shape. I got a chance at this, and lost to an 89.
Lost with a 92. Somebody rolled a 91. I beat them, but somebody else rolled a 93. I won the next one with a 67.
Jeez. So I
And I got my
I
own
still
first
got to
minion
farm it a
the same day.
couple of times to get the minion, but I enjoy the quest. As far as
Like a
the
farm
fight,
party.
as far as the Hildy quests, you already know. I can give or take those. They're enjoyable. I do them because they're there, but I wouldn't miss them if they were gone.
That flying mount at the end, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I want that as a flying mount.
Last big piece of dungeony content, raidy content, World of Darkness. Ooh, you're kind of rolling your eyes on this one. Full 10. The full 10.
This was the best of all the Crystal Tower dungeons. It felt, I mean, I expected it to not be super not coil tier difficulty. We already knew that, but it was, to me, definitely the most challenging and interesting mechanically of all of the Crystal Tower.
It's funny you say mechanically. I loved being eaten by Cerberus.
Yes.
Exactly. That was a fantastic
like,
mechanic.
Cthulhu?
Yeah.
Is this Cthulhu? It's Cthulhu.
And then the weekly that we're going to see there with some items added to it that aren't currently available as rewards for the weekly is definitely good news. I can't say enough about the World of Darkness. I like the atmosphere. I love the music. I love the mechanics. The Cloud of Darkness fight is incredible. It's incredible. Yes. If you have not done it yet, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. I got to agree. 10.
I liked the little homage. There was a lot of little homages that people didn't necessarily notice from Final Fantasy III in there. The big one being the second trash pull. There's a treasure chest that when you open it is a Zonde clone. And a lot of people are like, oh, they're recycling models. No, that's from Final Fantasy III. There were chests with ribbons in them, and whenever you opened one, you had to beat a Zonde clone. And also, a lot of people thought there's too much recycling of models. That's what old Final Fantasies did.
Yeah.
They recycled models very often, and they stuck true to those, and we don't have to rename earlier bosses to do it, unlike with the Circus Tower. So, first boss was great. A lot of little things that can kill people but not end the fight, which was good. Everyone had their own individual responsibility to take care of themselves, and then the healers had their general responsibility. So.
Most of chat is saying 10 out of 10. We do have a 9 out of 10 because they felt, besides Cerberus, the mechanics were a bit too easy to figure out. I would agree there, which I would not agree with the Circus Tower and Labyrinth of the Ancients. You could figure out the mechanics for these fights without dying if you were just paying attention. It's not one that you really have to go and, with the exception of Cerberus, for a couple of those. But I didn't find it particularly challenging as far as figuring out what's going on without having seen a video prior.
Yeah, well, on a personal level, I don't think any of them ever really had that big. I think that Labyrinth of the Ancients had the Bone Dragon, which definitely had something that you couldn't figure out until it was too late. I feel like Circus Tower had the Scylla, maybe, the first boss, was kind of really the only challenging boss in that aspect. But for me, World of Darkness, the first boss has a move, you're looking at him wrong, it'll kill you. Move, you're standing in the wrong place, DPS too slow, it'll kill you. You don't move enough during a certain mechanic, it'll kill you. Ads, you ignore them, they'll kill you. Second boss, stand on the poison puddles, or it'll kill you. Like, there's so many individual mechanics that will kill people if you as an individual don't make an effort. And with all the mess, honestly, sometimes it's hard to see all that stuff. I thought the whole thing was great. I thought it was way better than Circus Tower and Labyrinth of the Ancients.
What I do like, though, with Tower and Ancients and then World of Darkness is it did feel like there was a bit of a difficulty progression. Even though the difficulty, of course, across the board is knocked way down compared to Coil, it did feel like, okay, you've done this, let's try something a little harder, let's try something a little harder. While I may not have found it extremely challenging, I do think it served its purpose for getting more people into raiding that maybe aren't familiar with raiding on a 8 or a 24 person scale. World of Darkness, for me, gets a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Sorry, that's the lore thing. I'll do 2. That way it's different.
Mailing quests,
So we're gonna talk about the Zodiac weapons now, all right?
No, not yet. Because there's mailing quests in this one, and these are the real side quests. Forget your Hildibrand stuff.
Is there a minion from that?
There's nothing yet. Actually, no, I take that back, because you do get Star-Spangled Subligars for doing these mailing quests.
Sure, Reinhardt's happy about that one. Sure, he had a part in that.
I'm a level 20 postmaster. That's all I have to say. Fear it.
Great,
Fear
I'm a level 20 minus a 0.
10 out of 20, or 10 out of 10 for the mailing quest. Whatever.
10 out of 10, whatever. You know,
10 out
I
of 10
don't know
out of
why
whatever.
we're talking about it. I don't know why we're talking about it either.
I just had to throw it on here because I like how you put no next to the show notes.
I checked the show notes. I was like, all right, yeah, talk about that. Talk about mailing.
No.
No.
We had to. We were talking about Hildibrand. We had to talk about the mailing quest. I know what's up. Chat's with me.
At least mine has a real reward.
Chat's with me.
Mine has the reward of laughter, okay? Of a smile.
So here we go. Put the cap on it. 2.5, Part 1, as a whole, 1 through 10, and why?
7. And why? Right. For some reason, I thought you were going to ask me. Story was the best story we've had since 2.0. Dungeons, not the greatest. Some of the better music, some interesting stuff, some new things. I like to see them try out new things. Odin, I had fun with. It was actually a trip down memory lane for me since it brought me back to Fan Festival, kind of. Hildibrand Quest, funny as ever. Minion that I wanted. 2 minions that I wanted. We avoid the cash shop on both of those. And World of Darkness was the best conclusion. But the dungeons, unfortunately, bring my average score down quite a bit because those are probably the piece of content we're going to be seeing the most often. So for me, it goes overall a 7. Oh, and I don't care about the mailing class. So those are a 0. That's the outlier.
And don't worry, chat. We didn't forget Frontlines, but it's unfair for me to put it in our overall score here because I've never participated. Give us 30 seconds for me to go through my overall score, and I'll let Happy talk about Frontlines for you.
Okay.
It's not fair for me to influence my overall score on something that I've never done. So I got to give this one patch 2.5 part 1. I'm going to give it an 8, maybe an 8.5 out of 10. It's for me, it hit a lot of high notes. There were some low ones. The Odin fight didn't particularly do it for me, and some of the dungeon stuff was just mediocre for me. But as a whole, it did its job. It gave me some nods to some previous Final Fantasy stuff, if you're a fan, which was really cool. It set the atmosphere. It set the tone. It pumped story, man. It beat story over the face and did not give you any filler to do it, and still left me going, shit, I have to wait 2 months for the rest of this.
Yeah, you do.
Which means it did its job, so I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 as a whole for patch 2.5 part 1. So that's a pretty damn good patch. Real quick, before chat goes crazy, go ahead and give your score individually for the new Frontlines rules.
Frontlines rules, I get a 6 out of 10. It's not, I mean, I didn't expect it to be balanced because we knew it was going to be a giant death match, but there's a few bugs that make it pretty impossible to play in Melee unless you have a really, really solid team behind you. If you're playing a Black Mage or a Summoner, you're gonna end every... I played Black Mage for the first time in I don't know how long, went 16-2. So, yeah. Let's give it a 6. Yeah, once they fix Kamidir and maybe give Melees a little bit more of a chance to actually, I don't know, do something, then it'll probably go up to about an 8. The games are quick. It's good light. It's good wolf marks, good wolfy, good PvP experience. Unfortunately, the roulette itself was kind of lame. Doesn't give PvP experience or wolf marks. Doesn't make sense to me at all. But at least it's a fun, quick way to get some tomestones, get some resources, and get a bunch of kills. It's a slaughter.
There you go. And next month we get 251, and we'll be talking
Gold
Manderville
Saucer.
Gold Saucer, baby. All right.
I hope that there's NPCs doing this. Well, we know that the Cactuar kind of does this. He does it more like this though, because he's a Cactuar.
So Yoshi P was out in full force with different members of the media prior to 2.5's launch, getting a bunch of interviews and information front-loaded so that sites were ready to go when 2.5 did go live. Shout out to the Blue Garter forums here, because that's where I'm getting a lot of the...
Slicer.
Yeah, getting a lot of the translations from, so wouldn't be right to not give them a shout-out. Thank you so much. So let's talk Zodiac. Let's talk Zodiac. We already knew, based on the patch notes, that the Alexandrite drops from Fates were going to be increased for gold Fates. We speculated there was probably going to be just about as much of an increase as the Atma drops were, which, wasn't really one. It's testing right now. I'm seeing it maybe 1 in about 9 when I'm personally farming Fates for a little bit. I think in the interview it's quoted as about 10 to 12%, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you want to know something that's funny? I was going over the changes in a recent video. I was like, oh, let me just go out there with my Zodiac weapon, see how long it takes to get an Alexandrite. First Fate. I was like, all right, that's all I need to see. I don't need to do any more to see how it's to go on an unlucky streak. That's it. Drop rates up, that's for sure.
I will say this, though. I'm willing to deal with a 10 to 12% rate there, because I would literally much rather put Netflix on and farm Fates than to put Netflix on and farm Hunts, which, by the way, are totally frickin' broken again. It's 2.3 all over again.
No, it's not. It's worse. Now, keep in mind, it's worse for the people that aren't actual hunters, people that, just wait for the call and they try to get there in time. The people who are actually hunting, for them it's 2.3 all over again, but for them it's the fun side of 2.3 all over again, where there's constant communication and spawn times and spawn conditions. I see people, calling out, going to Mordona, hey, we're going to pop this guy right now. If you're there, you can get, get there first, help us spawn it. I'm seeing some cooperation. It's the people who come later, the people who may not have good load times, that are really not able to participate in it anymore. Yes, that sucks. It's just that's you can't do anything about that. So many people want those resources. That's the best you can do.
Yeah, not digging the hunts. Not digging it. I'd much rather, and it's terrible to say, I'd rather Fate grind than Hunt grind, but I would rather not do either of them. But
well, at least the weekly hunt is worth 100 now.
Yeah. Yeah, but unfortunately once a week, and that's only half an Alexander.
No, man, 30 weeks, you'll be all right.
Light worth for the next phase doubled.
I guessed that. I get points because I called it. They were going to double it. I just had a feeling they weren't just going to increase it by 1 point. You know how that would I'd even be happy about that. Yeah.
If you're on the Animus step, some of those Fates that were on 3 and 4 hour spawn timers have been reduced. But there's still about a 2 hour spawn timer, so whatever. I'm glad I'm past it, so I don't have to deal with it.
3 episodes of Walking Dead versus 6 episodes of Walking Dead. Okay, that's all you gotta know.
So here's the question then, and it's the question we've talked about before, and you've speculated on previous videos. I saw you just put up a video yesterday on this topic, actually.
Yes.
And it sounds to me like you've kind of changed your tune a little bit on whether these are going to be useful in the expansion or not, based on Yoshi P's specific reply. Go ahead.
It's not that I changed my mind. It's kind of the same thing I've always thought, but it was more of like I was hoping it would do this. I just didn't know if they would do this. So let's talk about what he actually said.
Will Zodiac weapons continue? And I'm reading from the interviews that were translated on the Blue Garter forums. Will Zodiac weapons continue to undergo development in the future, like in Heavensward? And Yoshi P says, since players who have been going through the whole Zodiac weapon saga so far have put a lot of work into it, it won't be like we suddenly forget all about them. For Heavensward, since the character level cap will be raised at the start, the adventurer himself will grow, so players will be aiming to acquire new items through the new content. Whether it's the Zodiac weapon saga or its sequel, players will be able to continue to grow the weapon in patch 3.1. So the follow-up question is, so Zodiac weapon owners will get some attention at that time? And Yoshi P says, yes, of course. Which is good news.
You want to say the whole thing that he said? it won't be a complete waste.
It won't be a complete waste.
See, you can read that in two different ways, though. You can read that like, it won't be a complete waste. Or it's like, no, it won't be a complete waste. Don't worry. But the word complete is still there, which means it will be a partial waste.
So you're gonna get a nod for having done all of this stuff. What it is yet, we don't know.
Imagine the nod is just the NPC goes like, "Wow, you did that already." So you're mentally prepared for this next one.
Right?
You've done it once before. I know you can do it again.
Or it's a new achievement.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your new achievement. So I read that as the quest will continue, and there will be a whole new grind to get on.
It said it could be a sequel, which is because they said the Zodiac weapon quest line would end at some point. So I think they're just kind of throwing in whether it's the old quest or its sequel. I think they're just kind of throwing that in there as to not tell people that it's ending directly, like kind of a way around throwing that out there. But yeah, it's going to reach its ultimate form in 2.51. It's done, but the sequel will not be forgotten.
I don't know about that one. I'm thinking that they don't have a clue on what they're going to do with it yet. And so
they got stuff planned 4 years in advance. They knew.
Right. All right, we're going to take some viewer questions now. You got a couple of minutes to get one in here if you haven't. Go to Twitter, use hashtag XIV Reborn, and we'll get your questions on here. We'll get as many as we can here. All right, first up, Nick Baker, a.k.a. Niabari, who's the Dark Overlord of Gamebreaker Nation, the free company that I'm in on Behemoth. We have a blast, so if you're looking for a free company on Behemoth, by all means, let us know. We'd be happy to have you. Niabari says, are hard and rage fights like Odin good for the game? Telling Duty Finder players that we need more DPS doesn't work well. What do you think?
I think it is, because, I mean, at some point you gotta kind of try and improve your play. Like, it's fights like those where you can really look at your damage, analyze yourself. What could I have done better to help reach that goal? It's fights like that that really start to make you look at the little mistakes you might be making or intricacies. And like I said earlier, Odin's a great fight because it trains everyone to pay at least a little bit more attention to the tanks. It helps them with making sure they use their cooldowns at the right time. Healers make sure they're attentive to both raid healing and tank healing at the same time. And the DPS, that they're able to dodge and still meet the check at the same time. I think it's good for the health of the game and good for progression as a player.
Well, I understand the intent here, and it's something that Yoshi P has talked about too, to the point of we can't whisper in dungeons for this very reason. Yeah. Treating people with respect and everything. I get it. It's the internet. It's a game. It's gonna happen. To me, I don't want them not putting harder and harder and more challenging content in there simply because they're worried about how somebody's going to comment to somebody else in the Duty Finder. I would like to think that, at least when I get into Duty Finder, and I know, Happy, you're the same way when you do it for the videos all the time, that if there's somebody that isn't pulling their weight or doesn't quite know things, we're both reaching out saying, hey, you know what, brother, why don't you try this instead? That's really going to help you out. Or, hey, I noticed you weren't using this. And then when the people don't want that type of help, even when it's given nicely, then, all right, vote kick, you son of a, that's when we whip that up. But at least there's that. I would like to think the entire world is like that. They're not. I don't have a problem with the hard and rage, though, because, at some point, what's the point of the game if there isn't content at some level that is something to work for? And the final coil is like that for me. I'm still on the final turn of second coil, personally. Because I don't have a static raid group at the moment, so it's kind of like just go in and practice it a little when I have a chance. And I like the idea of I can do 98% of the game, right? There's 5 turns in the game that I can't do yet, and so I still have something that I'm working towards. And so I kind of like that idea. But yeah, people are going to be jerks.
And work towards sightseeing logs.
Yeah, screw that. I've come to terms with the fact that I'm always going to be -1 minion. And it pains me to say that. It pains me to say that.
What if they got rid of the weather and it was only the time?
I would totally do it.
Okay.
I would totally do it. The weather is what kills the sightseeing log. It's not going to happen, but the weather is what kills that for me. Tyler Bauman says, should we, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, should we get more rewards, example, Grand Company Seals, Wolf Marks, PvP experience, implemented within the currently lackluster Frontlines roulette? I'm going to leave all this one to you.
Why the hell would I join the Frontlines roulette for tomestones? I want more PvP XP, damn it. It takes forever to get rank 45. Yes. And they even addressed it on the official forums. They said they understand that it's not rewarding quite what people were expecting and that they'll pass that along to the developers, whatever that might mean. Hopefully in 2.51 we'll see some marks in Wolf EXP. Grand Company Seals might be alright because we are, we're kind of separated by Grand Company in there anyway. So I'd be okay with that too. It's something that players are actively looking to get, for Venture Seals or for the Zodiac questline. So I'd be okay with that too.
Grand Company Seals don't do anything for me. I'm maxed on all 3 Grand Companies, so... but I don't have to worry about it because I'm not PvPing. Brian Montfort says, what would your dream Final Fantasy XIV crossover event consist of? Lore doesn't matter. Any mashup you want.
Crap, lore doesn't matter. That's all I ever consider when I think about these things.
Yeah,
like
we've talked about that. Yeah.
Like the Kingdom Hearts 3 one everyone thinks, or the Final Fantasy 15 one everyone thinks is going to happen. But this is literally like no holds bar. Like we could do Super Mario for all we care.
Lore does well. Brian was specific in what would your dream 14 crossover.
Yeah, crossover with Mario.
All right, fine. If you want, whatever you want to do.
It also says hashtag go nuts.
Oh, it does say hashtag go nuts. Whatever you want to do, you're up.
All right, I'm gonna stick with a Square Enix game. I'm gonna go with Deus Ex Machina. Because I don't even know what would happen. Garleans mixed with Deus, I don't know. I think that's a fantastic universe that I would like to, that I would love to see in the game.
I'm going to be generic and keep it in Final Fantasy land, because lore does matter to me. But, pretending that it doesn't, I want to see promies.
Okay.
Specific promies, too. Specific promies. Later parts of the promise story from Final Fantasy XI converted into... Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Vazel can go burn in a fire.
Yeah, don't bring Shantoto here. Let's us do our own thing here. Spoiler alert on this last question, although we've already mentioned this, so, whatever. Michael Bruin says, what do you think about the Warrior of Light ability being taken away? Are our characters really vulnerable now? I'm going to go with no. Because if they actually killed our characters, then there's no point in playing. Oh, shit! Our VCA just blew my mind. Castlevania and Final Fantasy XIV combo. Damn!
Dracula, last boss of Amdapor Keep Extreme.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I'm a huge Castlevania nut. Huge Castlevania nut. So what do you think about it being taken away? Are we really vulnerable? No. Obviously we're not vulnerable. They're not going to do anything with our characters. But I think it's a great way to set up the story going forward and kind of reset. Because for the last, 3 patches, we've been the powerhouse. And now there's an opportunity for us to tell a story where we're not necessarily the most powerful person in the Crystal Braves or in the Scions. And I like that there's doubt. Are we in danger? Of course not.
No. I think that wasn't even the interesting part for me. It was what he accomplished by taking away that power. Like, what he formed a pact with us, a covenant. It's like, didn't you just say bad things are going to happen? Why are you on my team all? I don't know what's going on. I want to know more.
Yeah, but he also says your downfall will be brought by somebody else's hand, not mine. I've made this pact with you. I'm not going to destroy you, but kind of hinted at the fact that somebody else is going to.
Yeah, or going to try at the very least.
Oh, Legend of Dragoon in Final Fantasy XIV. That's another good one.
It's a lot of good ones.
Put that combo button system in. Ooh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Hey, 15's going to have combos.
There he is, Mr. Happy, Michael Poveromo. You can follow him on Twitter at Mr. Happy1227. He's got his gold medal. Why don't you tell us about it real quick?
Gold medal was for raising over $1,000 for Extra Life in 2014. He actually raised over $5,000 for it.
Congratulations, sir. Where can everybody follow you?
Everyone can follow me at Twitter at Mr. Happy1227. Facebook, MrHappy137, and YouTube, just Google it because it's not really fun.
I'm Mike Byrne, aka Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter at MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN1. And until next week, gang, right here on Game Breakers, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.